Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog. Code Mayo. An Underdog right now gets you a deposit bonus of up to $1,000, which you can roll over into drafting some Underdog best ball teams for this NFL season, where there is over $22 million up for grabs. Why not get some? You can't do it if you're not on Underdog. So get on Underdog with code Mayo. Wide receiver rankings and tiers and wide receiver news. Today on the show, Jake Ciely from theathletic.com is joining me from Fantasy Life. Ian Hartitz is here as well. Jake, what's going on with all these receivers? Everything was fine. Then boom, like 7 days worth of wide receiver news.
And the biggest one being Rashee Rice. But first off, I usually have the t-shirts, but shout out to Ian for the Zelda t-shirt. I definitely appreciate showing up with that. The Rashee Rice, look, I'm not the expert. I'm just going off people like Drew Davenport and everybody else saying what they expect the legal experts who actually work in law. Everything sounds like it's going to be 6 to 8 for Rice. That'd be the more concerning one. Addison still kind of up in the air, maybe a game 2 or 3, but that's the NFL's decision, it seems, with his. At least, again, according to all the people that we've been looking for online. The good news, you say Underdog, is I don't have a share of Rice yet because I thought there was legit, and I know we'll talk about it, I thought there was legit more of a concern that Worthy would eat in more than people were giving him credit for last year with a similar finish. But with now 6 to 8 games, I mean, we also are sitting here, we're assuming it's going to be the beginning of the season. What if it's the Zeke route? You and I have talked about this with other players before in past years. Like, what if it's all of a sudden, okay, they're working through things, he plays 4 games, and then boom, it's 8 games in the middle of the season pushing up against your playoffs. So I have him down outside the 40s now. I put Worthy inside the top 25, and I think that's just how you have to trade it. You know the risk, you know the upside. If you want to take Rice a little bit earlier, to your argument that you made for years about the Le'Veon Bell situation, that you know what you're getting when he's back, is warranted to a degree, but I don't know that you're getting it when he gets back. I think this is a huge question. I don't know how Rice is very draftable in most redraft leagues.
And that's what we're talking about today in terms of rankings. I want to give everyone a special heads up because I got a huge promo going on right now. If you go to 4for4.com/Mayo, you can get 25% off any of the NFL subs. You want standard fantasy? That's great. You can do that. That's cheaper than most of the others. Hey, you want the tools for that and DFS, or that DFS and betting? There are 4 levels. See which one suits you best and get yourself 25% off. 444, the number 4, 4, F-O-R, the number 4.com/Mayo. Ian, you've dropped Rice down to number 37 in your wide receiver rankings. We don't really have an updated ADP, but previous to that in redraft leagues, he was going at number 17. Does that mean you're comfortable with him as a wide receiver 4 on your team and just say, hey, I'm going to have someone who's great for the final 6 games of the year, the championship stretch when you need him the most?
Again, just going to be depending how your roster is going. If you already have 4 wide receivers and you want to tack on that cherry who you're not even going to need to necessarily worry about starting for the first month, I can get behind pulling the trigger there. Whereas, if you are taking a couple running backs early and you actively need still a 3rd starting wide receiver, that's probably where I'm going to lean more towards the Roma Dunse's, Jennings of the world, who I do have ranked right alongside him. But man, Jake's not wrong. I mean, that ADP was getting crazy in some of these early drafts up there really at the end of round 2. So has been quite the fall from grace. But, going back to the idea where you do know what you're getting when Rice is out there. I mean, last year, again, in those 3 healthy games, I know just 3, more PPR points per game than anyone not named Jamar Chase. You can also look at his rookie year come up, especially down the stretch in the playoffs. We are dealing with a legit wide receiver 1 here. And I would say specifically for those in redraft leagues with keepers, this is a good opportunity to get this dude at a fraction of the cost. And then next year, you can have someone, round 7 that's going to be going in round 2 in more drafts than not. So I would say, lukewarm on the idea of drafting him right now, but I don't want to exactly be left with 0 bags either.
Obviously, Jake, I want to at least have a better sense of what the suspension is going to be, when the suspension is going to come. But Rashee Rice now becomes a Pat Mayo target. These are, as you mentioned before, these are the players I love to draft.
And you do. And to what Ian just said, here's my concern, though. You have to put him on your bench. Like, this isn't an IR situation, fine. which is fine. If
I'm with you. Slayton. Phil right
if it was 4 games, like I think 6 and then especially 8 I'm probably not even going to waste a spot on my bench, especially because we know what we're picking up at the beginning of the year and how many times. And I'm not saying it's a 50% hit rate, but how many times those guys end up being valuable, and you get the weeks that they are valuable, and then throughout the rest of the year. Last year, people were dropping Chase Brown and Bucky Irving in week 2 because they were impatient, and you could scoop them off. And so I have no problem with him. What Ian said, 100%. If you already have a starting lineup and he's immediately on your bench, cool. Just understand you're absorbing a bench spot. You're not putting them in your IR. You're not putting them on a spot that you don't have to waste a spot, basically. The only pushback that I also have, though, is, and this is just where Ian and I differ, and I don't know where you are in this one, but I'm just not confident that Rashee Rice is what we saw in the first 3 games, because Xavier Worthy, almost identical finish to the season as Rashee Rice's rookie season finish. And I'm not saying I wouldn't take Rice over Worthy talent-wise, but we're now going to be close to 2 years removed because of the injury and now the suspension on top of it. And it's not that Worthy's a slouch. Like, Worthy does a lot of what Rice does. And I think the other question that we don't know, we can sit here and speculate and talk about routes run and where they'll line up and all that type of stuff. And I'm not saying Ian or I or you, anybody knows for certain. That's my point here, is that when they're both on the field, is it going to be Rice used in that new Patrick Mahomes short to intermediate peppering the field, and all of a sudden his ADOT is 7 and Worthy's got the 12? Or does it flip the other way? Because I think that's the more interesting thing too, is that you could actually see Rice have a higher target share with their numbers being very equitable because of the per reception basis for Worthy versus Rice, if that were to happen. I'm not saying it's definitively going to. I'm just saying I'm not confident enough to say that we're going to get Rice back in week 9 and then boom, he's top 15.
I don't need him. I don't think I need him to be even top 15, Ian. I think I need him to be top 25-ish. I'll take some of the expectation burden off of him. I just need him to be a starter. I feel like if it's a 3 wide receiver league, obviously, if it's a 2 wide receiver league, I think this completely changes the entire dynamic because you're not pressed into playing that wide receiver. Additionally, I think it all depends on the experience of player and how good you deem yourself to be at fantasy football too. Like, can you go make waiver moves? Can you have someone on your bench that's essentially a dead spot and feel okay about that, knowing that you're going to have some opportunity costs somewhere with some of the guys that you keep on your bench? That means you can't have X handcuff, or you can't have this guy that you're waiting to break out, the Bucky Irvings of the world. It's funny because it doesn't necessarily work this way with wide receivers as much, but I ended up basically drafting Chuba Hubbard on every single team last year, knowing that Brooks was going to come back and then Hubbard was going to be useless. Even in the Le'Veon Bell year that Jake is talking about, I drafted a ton of D'Angelo Williams, being like, hey, I got basically like a top 15 guy for the first 4 weeks of the season. And that really worked out well. With Hubbard last year, Brooks came back. He played a game kind of, and then he got hurt. Then it was all Hubbard again. So sometimes you can just luck yourself into a good situation anyway. I'm just willing to take this sort of risk on, knowing that there is substantial upside. If it was a player of like lesser quality and lesser opportunity, the potential for that, I would just say, yeah, who cares? No one cares. But this is actually someone I would still reach on right now.
I mean, the amount of times I drafted Josh Gordon in the 2010s, man, you don't need to sell me on trying to take a chance here on someone who may or may not even be out there on the field. So I do think, though, that when you look at Rice, and again, just not even ignoring what we even saw last year, which again was a great 3-game sample, just 3 games. I mean, his yards per route run, targets per route run, these numbers are up there, literally top 10 over the course of the past decade, up there with some of the biggest stars of the position. So I do think there's a little bit of a gap between Rice and Worthy in terms of what they bring to the table. Rice is the more complete receiver, in my opinion. I mean, guys, until the second half of the Super Bowl, Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy had the same amount of receptions on passes thrown at least 30 yards downfield. I mean, they could not get anything going all year long with Worthy going deep until they did have to really change his role to fit that more of Rashee Rice, as Jake mentioned. So again, Travis Kelce, obviously another year older. I think that we could see him being phased out a bit more while both wide receivers thrive. Hollywood Brown also going to be healthier here. He's someone where, Jake, I will be curious to see how many targets you have projected there. I do wonder, though, maybe we were just a year early on this Patrick Mahomes bounce back, because again, all these injuries that were kind of going on with the offense last year had such a low ADOT and everything. If we are going to be getting Rice for a second half, Hollywood finds a way to stay healthy, and we got Worthy making a second-year jump. Maybe the Chiefs offense can rank top 10, top 5. I don't know. They've been 15 back-to-back years, and it's infuriating, guys.
It's interesting. It's hard to nail down what this Chiefs offense is going to look like, Jake.
And I think that's the question everybody has, is that we've been watching for years now that Patrick Mahomes and this offense are more the intermediate. We're going to play the middle of the field and do things after the catch. There's been a lot that's gone wrong the past 2 years between running backs not staying healthy, as Ian just mentioned. Travis Kelce starting to fall off, and what if now it's another step further behind and he's not even productive at all? Because going into this, before this, I will go back and say that before the suspension possibility, I had Rice inside the top 20 and I had Worthy right around 30 something, because I thought that Kelce would be the third man and he would be battling with the rest of Marquise Browns of the world and everything like that. But I think that really the question is going to be, do they try to open things up? Do they try to push more downfield? And that's where I go back to who's going to do it. And I don't disagree with you much if you're going to say top 25. The reason I referenced the top 15 with Rice is because, as Ian was talking about, that he knew what I was talking about, is that's where Rice's ADP was. He was almost a wide receiver 1. So if that were what you were expecting when he came back, that was my entire point in that, is that I could see where, maybe best case scenario, he comes back and from day one, they're Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, and they're both top 15, top 20 at worst. I just want to put out there to understand the risk that he comes back and maybe it's a mix and match. Maybe it's more like the Bears, where it's a DJ Moore and Keenan Allen type of production levels, or that kind of thing where you get a fringe wide receiver 2 and a fringe wide receiver 3. I do expect better. I'm just saying there's some risk to be said here, because again, we're saying the Chiefs offense, it'll bounce back, it'll bounce back, it'll bounce back. We know we can do it. We know what Patrick Mahomes can do, but we haven't seen it for years. Mostly because they don't need to. They play the Golden State Warrior championship season game. It's like, hey, we'll turn it on in the playoffs. And maybe last year, not completing the full season and getting the Super Bowl kind of knocks them on their chin a little bit and say, hey, let's not just coast the entire year. But at the same time, this defense isn't putting them in games where they have to score 35, 42 points anymore.
Makes sense. Well, let's move on. Washington might have some wide receiver problems. I don't think this is going to hold, but we'll see. Henry McKenna reports that Terry McLaurin will, quote, explore every option, including a holdout, a hold in and trade, while seeking a contract extension. Ian, I just think he gets the contract.
Yeah, pay up, Washington. Come on. At least do the thing where you give him some potential to, earn extra money with incentives and stuff like we've seen over the past few years, more so with the running back. So it's just one of these things where, you get the new ownership and front office in Washington, and it's been great. I mean, the vibes around this franchise, I feel like, are night and day compared to just where they were 2 years ago. And now your guy comes out and puts forward one of the better wide receiver seasons we've seen since like Santana Moss or someone like that. You can't give him a few extra bones. I stand with Terry McLaurin here in Columbus, Ohio, Buckeye great and everything like that. But I'm with you, Pat. I just think it gets done at some point. What's their other option? You want to go out there with Noah Brown as your legit, X wide receiver? There's still a decent chance that Deebo Samuel is washed. We can talk about them ammonia splits before and after and things like that. But for a team with such little wide receiver depth, I mean, Zach freaking Ertz had like 16 targets in the NFC Championship last year, okay? Let's not piss off the one guy on your entire, wide receiver room that actually strikes a little bit of fear in the opposition. Come on, guys.
What do you make of it, Jake?
I'm with Ian, but I think that this is just Washington looking at the fact he's turning 30 and saying, all right, well, we kind of don't want to give him the contracts we see floating out there. And I think it's just Terry doing what he should do, digging in for as much money as he can get, watching those contracts that are to be given out and saying, look at the year I just came off of, as Ian just said. So I think something gets done, but I have a feeling it might either need to be shorter for more, or just kind of understand that he's not going to be at the top of the tier. Just again, because I think it's not that Washington doesn't have the money. I think they're looking at the fact that he's 30. So are they really going to give him 6-7 years and the top of the level contract that's going out there? Probably that's their issue. And the problem is, Terry knows what Ian just said. He's kind of got him by the you-know-what. He's like, what are you going to do? You're going to roll out there with Luke McCaffrey, as he said, and Noah Brown? Like, he knows they need him more than he needs them right now.
Looking at the rankings right now, McLaurin's being drafted as wide receiver number 18. Jake, you have him at 15. Ian, you're down on McLaurin. You have him at exactly ADP at number 18. It sounds like Jake loves Terry McLaurin.
Why does Ian hate him?
Yeah,
that's don't put me in that spot. Come on, fellas. But now, look, the thing is, this was the surprising part for me. Like, if you had to kind of paint a picture last year about like preseason, like why is Terry McLaurin going to absolutely ball out? I would have just expected to be like, hey, this is an offense where Olamide Zaccheaus, Diami Brown were your wide receivers 2 and 3, along with Noah Brown. I just figured he'd have 160, 170 targets and be able to make his, money and production from that standpoint. Just 117 targets for Terry in 17 games last year, man. He ran so hot with the touchdowns. And on the one hand, I do think that sometimes these fancy nerds, which I can put myself in that tier of things, nothing wrong with being a nerd, everyone. But man, when you look at it, these touchdowns, I don't think we give enough credit to the reality that I believe that touchdown scoring is a skill to some extent. But man, you do look at the numbers and guys who, again, are scoring that high of a touchdown rate on that few of targets. Again, not trying to be the boy who cried regression here, but I do think there is something to be said about that coming for Terry. And that's before even considering the potential drop off with the age factor that Jake brought up. So again, Terry, he's right there alongside guys like Mike Evans. I had Jackson Smith and Jigba one spot behind him. DK Metcalf is there as well. So in an offense where I'd be more confident in him getting 150 targets, okay, that's one thing. But man, I have a really tough time drafting any of these wide receivers around fellow talented wide receivers when we're looking at 20 or 30 fewer targets.
Yeah, I would just throw up someone like, I know you both have this guy ranked behind Terry McLaurin. He was a part of the hardest players to rank show that we did. You can go find that back on the pod feed. You can find it up on Mayo Media Network. In fact, you know what? I'm going to throw it down in the comment section and description of the audio and video in case you want to jump over to it to see more of this. But Jake, you have DJ Moore ranked at 21. Ian, you have him ranked at 23. I don't think that there's that like that. Is that the same tier to you, Jake? Those two guys?
Yes. Actually, my tier starts with T. Higgins at 14 and goes all the way down to Cortland Sutton at 24. That might be a slight one off from your ranks that I gave you because I did an update today and it moved a guy or two. But anyway, point being, it's a very large tier. We're talking about 11 wide receivers there. So I know what Ian's saying. I actually think that there's not only a potential to see a little bit of an increase in targets. I only have them for about 7, 8, maybe 10 more than last year. But I think it's more on a per catch basis too. And I'm not talking about the touchdowns. I also agree with that aspect of it, is that to expect that touchdown rate, we know it doesn't always repeat, but the per reception rate, I think the Deebo Samuel addition, and even if he is washed, that they have been talking up Luke McCaffrey, and I don't think McCaffrey's in the same planet of his own brother, let alone some of the wide receivers, but he could step as the number 2. And the thing is what Ian was talking about earlier about the Zach Ertz thing, is they need somebody. That's why they traded for Deebo. They had this junk crew running out trying to be the number 2 wide receiver, and the biggest thing about Noah Brown is, yeah, cool, that one play, beat the Bears, everything's awesome in that one, but the truth is what you want is somebody underneath to open Terry McLaurin more deep, get the coverage off of him, get single coverage, make some of those bigger plays, make some of the touchdown plays. So I actually think you could see him more efficient this year with Deebo or whoever it might be, because Zach Ertz also didn't even play the full season last year. So I think the collection around him is better just to make him more efficient this year.
Strangely, the guy that allows McLaurin to get deep a lot of the time is Jaden Daniels himself, because he just kind of stops everyone once he starts running around. It leads to single coverage too. If you put in someone else like a Deebo, like you mentioned, basically I can see Deebo on this team. Let's say he is washed in. He's basically playing the Ertz role.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've used him in those underneath areas for sure. And it's a great point on Daniels. And what's funny is that was almost like the cause for concern with Daniels coming out of LSU. Like I think it was when he was pressured at LSU, like 50% of his dropbacks weren't even resulting in a pass attempt. He would either scramble because he was faster than everyone, or he would take a lot of sacks. But I remember, I think it was that Browns game, week 3 or 4, first drive of the game, Daniels breaks the pocket, all of a sudden finds Terry 65 yards downfield. Just crazy. This dude got better. Maybe we all should, being in the VR headset like Jaden Daniels all the time. So again, situation where Deebo, man, before the pneumonia last year, wide receiver 25 in terms of fantasy points per game. Afterwards, and also had some other injuries he was dealing with, fell outside the top 40. So I will say with Deebo, he was almost like the Nick Chubb of wide receivers for years, where the usage was never all that great, but man, he was consistently first in the NFL in terms of yards per carry, and then he was also making the most out of his receptions, particularly after the catch. So I haven't found myself buying into a ton of Deebo so far. Again, I just don't think this is the sort of archetype that's going to keep on going. I also struggle to see him having that same sort of running back role that he had in San Francisco. So, Jake, I mean, maybe there's a situation where Deebo does just soak in all these screens and, the sort of Cliff Kingsbury quick hitters that they haven't had a great guy for. But just, again, aging wide receiver, we saw all the efficiency created last year. Really not someone I've gone out of my way for.
Well, and that's I have Deebo Samuel as a wide receiver 4, mostly because I'm fine with his cost right now in ADP, and you can bring that up, Pat. But I was talking to somebody the other day, and he actually, I'll give credit to them, Wyatt Langford. He actually said, not Langford, that's the baseball player. Wyatt, and now I'm forgetting his last name for Renault Underworld. But he said, if I miss on Deebo Samuel, I'm okay. And I agreed with him. It's like, if you miss on Deebo Samuel, like Deebo Samuel is not going to be on somebody else's fantasy team in your league and be the one that breaks you. Like, he's just not going to do it. Like, if he is whatever this, the sickness, injuries, and all that type of stuff. Okay, wide receiver 25. Yeah, that sucks. You didn't get him, but he's still going as a wide receiver 4. It's not like you're going to get Deebo Samuel to go out there and put up a top 10 performance on the season and really ruin your year if you don't get him. So I'm okay if you get him, but those projections you just threw up at, I'm not that far off. I have him for 62 receptions, 707 yards, and only 4 receiving touchdowns, and I have him almost as a non-factor in the run game. I just don't think that's who he is anymore, especially on the Commanders.
Ian has him at number 36 at receiver, half point, and Jake, you have him at number 44. Let me throw a scenario to you, Ian.
I go down. I got to move that one down. Hand up.
What if a lot of his problems were actually that the dude had pneumonia and tried to play through it, and he's just actually good?
He was hospitalized for like 2 days, so like it's reasonable. I know sometimes we pull out these injuries, and I've tried to give credit to a lot of these players, Travis Etienne, Jaylen Warren. I mean, we're very, I guess, cognizant of the injuries when they're happening, when a guy's listed as questionable in the injury report, but we don't put as much stock after they've returned to the field, after we know that they're going to play. And again, they're just out there working at less than 100%. So I think there's a case to be made, but man, we already knew this was a guy that, really is not able to beat man coverage. I mean, 49ers fans know all about that. So just when you need him to be at such a higher level with his opportunities, for me, it's not only just the post-injury numbers, but also just, again, that age and fact that we probably have already seen the best of him.
Let's move to those San Francisco 49ers who you mentioned. They got problems in the receiver room. We got Ayiuk on PUP, at least right now. He might miss the start of the season. Ricky Bullets was put on PUP. That's no fun. And Juwan Jennings, Jake, wants a new contract.
Yeah, of course, because he
Alpha
performed.
behavior.
Yeah, he performed well last year, but we kind of talked on him in like a little. Didn't we do that on the Tough to Rank show?
Yeah, but now it's even tougher to rank because we have. I would guess that Persall is ready for the beginning of the year. Ayiuk is not, and Jennings is there.
And I'm with you on that. Like Jennings, again, go get your money. I thought that was interesting last year is that people kind of overlooked that the 49ers gave him the little contract and wanted him around. And that's why it was interesting when Ayiuk got hurt. And that's why we all talked about him. I say all of us, like including us on the show, talked about him last year, stepping up potentially, kind of overlooked. He's not overlooked anymore. But even so, and Ian brought that up, it's not like he was putting in top 15 numbers for us in fantasy or even on the field when he came. He had one enormous game and then a lot of really good games. He's not a top 15 wide receiver in the NFL. Even if Ayiuk was gone for the entire year, I'm with you. Like we had him on that talk, a month or two ago, Pat, where you and I were talking about him being potentially top 25, but I kind of think that's his limit because I think Persall is a legitimate threat. And I think Persall fits the Deebo role. He is not Deebo, just like Jennings is not Ayiuk, but they fit those roles out there where that was what we went back to that conversation, which my biggest fear for Jennings is that if Ayiuk comes back, Jennings comes off the field and not Persall. That assumes Persall's healthy, assumes that he's out there for week 1. This is a little, I will say, a 2 out of 10, mild scare, because this was 2 months ago, back in May, when they brought up the Persall injury. It's like, hey, should probably be fine for camp. And now we're still talking about it, and he's still quite not out there yet. And of course, that could change next week, and we don't even care. But it's at least to make you raise your eyebrow. The biggest thing here, I'm going to go back to it. I know this Ian's on the same team because we've been tweeting about it for the past 4 months, back and forth. The real answer here is Team George Kittle. That is the answer.
Best point I've heard Jake ever make. Right there. Well done, man. No, but let's just yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, you guys have, just between you, Jennings is going as wide receiver number 38 right now. Jake, you have him at 29. Ian, you have him at 33. Ricky Bullets is going as 41. Ian, you got him at 44. Jake, you got him at 43. Let me try to find Ayiuk here. Brandon Ayiuk is still being drafted currently, ADP 51 at receiver. Ian, you have him at 51. Jake, you have him at 59.
Yeah,
just with Ayiuk, I think if he's fully healthy and out there, he is just such a different dimension, absolute rock star. I know last year those 6-7 games were incredible, but there's just so much uncertainty right now. PUP seems like it's something that's probably a certainty at this point, and then we could even see a ramp up after that based on what again a lot of these Twitter doctors are saying. So Persall versus Jennings has been tough for me. Again, to Jake's point, George Kittle is that guy. I've certainly been siding a bit more with Jennings. Just again, the Persall thing, it's like any sort of critique from last year comes down to him being shot in the preseason. season, which, hey, maybe that is just a very good excuse and we should be leaning into it more. But like, there was a 5-game stretch last year where he ran a route on 69% of the dropbacks and everything. He totaled 21 yards. All right. It was cool at the end of the year when he had nice games against the Lions and the Cardinals. But can we break one tackle? This dude had 0 forced missed tackles on the entire season. So I know you can show me the nice comeback route against the Lions and he had the sick one-handed catch. I get it. He made some plays out there, but just again, really wasn't dynamic at all. And just, I feel like we give him praise for the 2 good games he had and we just write off everything else, even though he was actually out there for the season. So John Jennings, someone who did finish wide receiver 26 per game, would have had 1,000 yards with better health. I've been leaning Jennings, but maybe it is just good.
I'll give you some praise, and I'll get you guys to come over to Team Persall. Out of college, I called him Darius Slayton with better underneath game. So there you go.
Ooh, there we go.
Guy sounds great. Can I draft the real Darius Slayton for way cheaper?
Of course.
It makes way more sense. Jordan Addison, is it 3 games he's going to get?
That's speculatory.
But he's going to get something, isn't he?
You would seem, but I mean, the Rice one went all over the map. It was Rice is, oh yeah, we're going to wait till this year, or no, it's going to be fine. That's going to be half the season. And then you remember, it was just a month ago, and it's like, oh, this is going to be a 2026 problem. And then boom, we wake up and it's, haha, surprise, Rashee Rice, it's happening now. So, Addison, there's been talk, and I don't remember if it was Davenport or somebody else, but they're saying like this, they still have to go through the whole legal system in the courts. Like the courts could do something. You could get a continuation. You could get a plea bargain. It really just comes down to what the NFL is going to do. They're going to wait to see what happens and then make their decision. So if this gets kicked back even to December, I mean, we're just not talking about it until next year.
Who stands to benefit here, Ian, in Minnesota? Is it TJ Hawkinson? Is TJ Hawkinson an actual good pick now?
Probably. It's going to piss me off, too, because I've been fading this guy all offseason long, just because I don't get paying up for the guy as a tight end 5. This whole Hawkinson thing is coming from the big 2023 season when, yeah, he finished as a top 3 tight end, but we're talking about him averaging over 16 PPR points per game when Justin Jefferson missed 8 games, just 12.8 when, Justin Jefferson was on the field. So I think Addison is the clear-cut number 2 as soon as he's back, and I'm just hoping this gets resolved because, as Jake brought up, like the nightmare scenario is the mid-season Ezekiel Elliott suspension. If we do only a 1 to 3 games for Addison at the beginning of the year, okay, great. We don't even have buys to worry about. Like that's going to be a pretty easy fix for fantasy managers to handle. So I would give Hawkinson a nice little step up. And I was also actually running some strength of schedule stuff, which take with a grain of salt. I get it because we're still using 2024 numbers and everything has changed, but he's also running really hot in terms of what he has going for him in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the year. So Hawkinson, maybe he is going to be someone where we can get behind, get those couple big games, then trade away. I do think it'll be Jefferson and Addison, though. I mean, obviously Jefferson, but Addison behind him down the stretch. Wouldn't actually, understate exactly how high this dude can boom, though. Weeks 9 through 17, I know it's an arbitrary timeline, but it's the offseason. That's what we do during these years. Weeks 9 through 17 last year, guys, Justin Jefferson was the PPR wide receiver 4. Addison was the wide receiver 5. Like, this dude was going bonkers in his own right.
I don't know. So between Ayiuk, Ricky Bullets, we'll see what happens to Addison, Jake. None of these guys are on. It seems like Ayiuk should be on that Rashee Rice level of like, oh yeah, just keep him on your bench for 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden you got this guy coming back. But I feel like I just don't trust him to stay on the field.
You can
That's
IR
the
him,
difference.
which is nice.
Yes, so I was going to say it's both. So that's the issue is I don't know what Ayiuk is going to be. When it gets back, Ian brought up that it could be a ramp-up period. It could be, what if it's what we've seen at running back with players like Javonte Williams? What if he has the ramp-up period and then he still doesn't look great? And he still doesn't look great until 2026. The good thing is, unlike Rice, as Ian just said, is you can at least slap him on your IR. Obviously, you're going to have to make a decision when that time comes, but at least you get that free spot for a while there. I'm with you, though. That's why I have him down around the 50s. It's just because I don't know what he is when he comes back. I basically want him only to stash on my IR because what if there's a setback and a ramp-up period, and now we're talking about he doesn't show up to December, and then you're going to be like, yeah, I want to start him in week 12, first game back? Like, it's a big question mark to have, but if we knew, I think that's the difference. If we knew he was healthy like Rice with a potential of week 1 even still in play, because just 2 months ago, they were saying that. They were saying, hey, there's a chance Ayiuk could be out there for week 1. It'd be a completely different story because, again, we're doing a lot of agreement on this show, but I agree with Ian that if it was just everybody's healthy on this team, Ayiuk is definitively the best talent. It's just, can he stay on the field? Is he 100% of what he was?
Well, let's get to a point where we're not agreeing on something. How about this? Chris Godwin, they're not sure if he's going to go to training camp and participate. It seems like he's going to be ready for week 1, but we don't know that for sure. You guys, I think this is the one player you're most off on in your rankings. Currently, Chris Godwin is being drafted as the 34th receiver off the board. Ian, you have him ranked at 40. That's opposed to Jake's number 19 ranking of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and look, once we get to week 1, if Chris Godwin's going to be out there and healthy, I'm probably ranking him a little bit closer to Jake than where I have 40 right now. But there is some concern for that. And just like Jake was just saying with Ayiuk, there's some current concern if Godwin's going to actually be the same guy coming back, using a first-round pick on Emeka Egbuka. And, hey, guys, I don't know. We spent the entire offseason jerking off the Jaguars, getting Liam Cohen. Maybe losing one of the best play callers in the league is going to have a negative impact for the Buccaneers out here. Also, some potential touchdown regression coming from Baker. So I think it's a situation where Godwin, again, coming off yet another really devastating lower body injury. I wasn't exactly watching him last year. And look, he's racked up fantasy points. I get it. But this wasn't, even if he had, the same amount of fantasy points nearly as Jamar Chase, and I get it, style points don't get us anything extra in fantasy. I really don't think Godwin is operating anywhere near a top 10 real life level at this point. So again, wide receiver 19, maybe he is able to get there with the volume, but I think the Egbuka skill set is a situation where we could see an overlap there. And just final point, don't listen to a single thing Todd Bowles ever says again. This dude had the audacity last October to say Godwin might have a chance to return for a deep playoff run. Here we are, and sounding like week 1 isn't exactly, in the reign of potential certainties here. So Chris Godwin, again, being priced kind of where he was last year. I was wrong not to draft him then. Maybe I'll be wrong again, but man, not ideal, Jake. Not ideal.
Obviously, I have a lot of Godwin. Let me preface this with one thing, too, because these are ranks, and I think we're talking ADP banked in here, too, as well. I'm not telling you have to draft Godwin as the wide receiver 19. I'm just telling you that that's where his value lies, in my opinion. So you look at that, you look at ADP, that is ADP is in the 30s, and you say, you know what? I can still wait 3 rounds, 2 rounds likely after Jake has him, and that's where I can still take him, knowing I'm going to get him if you agree with me. If you don't, you can completely be out on it. But I just don't want to make that clear that I'm not saying draft him at 19 and ignore the value there, because now you're basically buying him to be near 100%. But 100% last year, he was wide receiver 3 in points per game, only behind Chase and only behind Rashee Rice. And then, of course, if you take half the season where Rice wasn't there, he's only behind Chase. It really comes down to watching that team last year, and I'm not saying Ian is doing this, but I'm not coming for him in this. Yeah, it's just funny that
come for him.
I see a lot of people are like, I got you. I see a lot of people talking about the Buccaneers, and it's like, oh, they lose Cohen. What about Baker? What about Godwin? What about Evans? What about this offense? What about the backfield? And then other people are like, well, Cohen's actually been behind a lot of people like Canales before. Like, what if it's not all Cohen? What if we're putting too much on the Jaguars for what Cohen could do? Like, it can't be both ways. Like, is he a factor? Probably. Is he everything? Probably also not. Baker Mayfield has a real connection with Godwin, and a lot of it has to do with style. And I'm going to go to this, and this is maybe reading too deep into the tea leaves, but I look at the Chris Godwin contract. There is 0 clause in there for an injury. Nothing. Not whatsoever in there, which tells me, why do you take a risk of that big of a contract at this point of his career, this many injuries, and you don't put a little something in there if he doesn't play, that, just in case, which is what I'm going back to. It's I don't trust Todd Bowles either, but if they're talking about him possibly last year, and we all knew that was kind of not going to happen, but it just kind of tells me, they think they're confident that he's going to be out there for week 1. Maybe it's not 100% week 1. Maybe it's not till week 2 or 3. It's similar to the Saquon Barkley year. But if it's by the end of September, I think he can put up wide receiver 1 numbers. And I look at Egbuka, and I agree with you, Ian. Great talent. But I also think this is the Buccaneers being a very smart organization. Mike Evans is done. We've been waiting for Mike Evans to be done. If it hasn't been last year and the year before, at some point it's going to happen. And as much as we can like McMillan, he's not the answer to replace Mike Evans. And I'm not saying Egbuka is a 1-for-1 talent fit for Evans, but maybe this is the year that Mike Evans is done, and then they get out of his contract. Egbuka steps right in. And I think this is just smart forecasting by the Buccaneers to not have to go into next year's draft with potential other issues we really need to replace Mike Evans too. This was, look at the value on the board. We're getting Egbuka. We're set at wide receiver. We can look at other ways to fix this team.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Part of my wellness routine this year, at least in the summer, has been focus more on family and focus more on Pat Mayo. So, been doing fewer shows, upping the exercise, eating better, and a lot of people don't have honestly, the privilege and luxury that I do to be able to take time off like that, especially during the summer when stuff can start to stress you out. If you have kids, there is no summer for you. It's just daily, nonstop grinding every single day. Couple that with workplace stress, and it's a bit difficult. Workplace stress right now is one of the top causes of declining mental health, with 61% of the global workforce experiencing a higher than normal amount of stress. So maybe BetterHelp is exactly what you need to do. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you feel anything going on with you, you need to go to betterhelp.com/PatMayo right now. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. My listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/PatMayo. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PatMayo. Let's jump into the very top of the rankings. This is what we're here to discuss. Ian and Jake's rankings. You can find all Jake's rankings at theathletic.com. You can find all of Ian's rankings over at myfantasylife.com as well. And 1 to 10 in ADP right now, you got Jama Chase, number 1, Jefferson, Lamb, Puka, Amon-Ra. That's the top 5. Then you got Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, Brian Thomas, Drake London, and A.J. Brown. The only guy, Ian, that you guys are really all that off on as opposed to each other here inside the top 10. Jake has Amon-Ra at ADP at number 5. You got him all the way down at 10. You're sweating Ben Johnson leaving?
It's a part of it. I don't love the fact that we also had the knee procedure, the cleanup in the offseason that we find out about in June, July. NFL insiders keep telling us about all these alternate jerseys, but maybe when a superstar wide receiver has knee surgery, you can give us a bit better heads up next time. But yeah, keep fighting the good fight, just being glorified Dobbs. But anyway, with Amon-Ra, we also have JMO, we also have Laporta, and yeah, Ben Johnson is also leaving as well. Jared Goff just put together his best season ever. And again, as much as I hate being the guy where we just look at these great seasons and say, well, that can't be that good again, I do think we may have already seen this Lions offense peak. So Amon-Ra, someone where, again, I think we would agree, very, very good real-life receiver and everything, but top 10 would be a stretch for me, and I think when we do have these extra concerns, I am okay ranking guys like Drake London, like A.J. Brown, and other really freaking good players ahead of them. So, again, my wide receiver 10, I just don't, again, want to pay up for the guy when we do actively have the potential for him to be not at 100%, when it's going up against the Brian Thomas Jr.'s, the Malik Neighbors of the world. As I do say that, Jake, I realize Malik Neighbors has his little foot issue, and it is July. So again, I'm not sounding the alarms here, but there's enough going on with Amon-Ra that I haven't gone out of my way for him at wide receiver 5.
I was actually surprised you guys were so down on Malik Neighbors. Jake, you got him at 8, Ian number 6. Yeah. I ran my projections. I customized mine at 4for4.com/Mayo to get that discount, and you can go run your own. I have his wide receiver 3.
Ooh, what are your projections?
Let's see here. What do I got on him here? I got 109 receptions, 1,350 yards, 9 touchdowns.
All right, so
600 targets.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3,000 targets. Most uncatchable.
So I have him 104, 1271, and 7. And obviously the biggest difference becoming the touchdowns, but also it's not that big of a difference. I have them the same tier. I have my tier is Lamb, Nakua, St. Brown, London, Thomas, Neighbors, and I'll stick on Neighbors here for a second. And I don't hate him, and this isn't from the last show. I hate everything to do with the Giants. It just comes down to if we're nitpicking in this tier, he's going to close out the tier for me, and he's still there. I'm going to start a whole new one with Nico Collins, and I thought you were going to bring up Nico Collins because that's one we differ quite a bit on too. But it comes down to, sure, Russell Wilson, is he as good as what they had at quarterback last year? I know it was miserable, but is he anything better? He's kind of looked like the past couple seasons. And at some point, I think everybody on earth would bet money they are turning away from Russell Wilson and going to Dart. Hell, we might even get to see Jameis at some point, although I'd probably feel best about Jameis. But what if Dart's at quarterback at week 7? And what if Dart rookie struggles? And what if Dart looks like Drake May did last year as a passer, where the numbers are shaky? It just comes down to minute risk where I would take Thomas and London. But to go back to St. Brown, I will come for Ian on this one because 2 years ago was better. He had over 17 points per game in half-point PPR last year. Last year was actually, or 2 years ago, last year was actually a downtick for St. Brown. So I do think we're not coming off the best. I think we're coming off the second best where he could even do better. So I will push back a little bit on that one. I think St. Brown is getting too much hate in his ranks.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you want to put him high, I'm not going to tell you. He's in that tier with those guys. I'll, revert to that. Oh, he's in the same tier. But I do think after Amon-Ra, I have Lab McConkey at wide receiver 11. That's the point, though, where I think we start getting legit red flags with guys. Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson. Like, that's the point where, Jake, I think you even said you have it like wide receiver 11 or 12 through 24.
14 through 24, yeah.
Yeah, like if you honestly wanted to just, almost take the bottom 5 and flip them with the top, I probably couldn't have that big of a, issue with it. So, end of the day, we know what we're getting with Amon-Ra. If we are trying to find these first 2 rounds of our fantasy drafts, the guys who can turn in that true overall wide receiver 1, win your freaking league, put their team on their back like a prime Greg Jennings out there. Give me Malik Neighbors, give me Brian Thomas Jr.
Question.
You mean St. Brown when he was wide receiver 3 2 years ago? So, just
2025, Jake.
Question for you. Chase, Jefferson, Lamb. Is that a tier by itself? Is that the tier 1? Then we're mixing and matching, or would you have?
We actually differ on that.
I was gonna say. I was gonna ask because Ian, you have Collins at 4, and then you have Puka at 4. Jake, like, would you make it a big 4? Is it a 3, and then the rest? How does that work?
That's a 2 for me. I could see it being a 1. I actually go Chase, Jefferson 1, 2 tier, and then I have Lamb, Nakua, St. Brown, London, Thomas, Neighbors as a tier. And then to Ian's point about my next tier is actually pretty small. It's only 5 wide receivers. Again, it's Collins, Brown, Smith and Jigba, McConkey, and Tyreek Hill. I'll still put Tyreek Hill in there, but I think all 5 of them have one little, and these are nitpicky. This is like, he has a hurt toe, and now he has 2 hurt toes. Like, I'm nitpicking in this tier to break them apart from London and St. Brown and stuff. Anything. If I finish with 2 wide receivers in the first 3 rounds or first 2.5 rounds, 2 inside the top 13, I'm going to be giddy. Let me make that clear. But yeah, I would actually go Jefferson and Chase on their own, and then Lamb in the next group. I don't want to assume. I want to see what Ian's thinking. I think I know what he's thinking. We have seen Lamb finish number 1, and now he has a legit threat next to him. It just, again, the Dak Prescott staying healthy risk, the Dak Prescott bouncing back. Is Pickens going to siphon off enough from Lamb that maybe he's just at 17 instead of 19 points per game? So again, we're nitpicking elite wide receivers. If you disagree with me, I'm not going to be that upset.
Yeah, look, when we're trying to look at any of these guys, sorry, Pat, but just again, how good is the quarterback? How good is the player's actual talent? What's their workload going to be? And what do we think of kind of the overall scoring offense? For me, Chase is the one that just clearly is, flying colors, checking each and every one of those boxes. With Justin Jefferson, we don't know for sure if J.J. McCarthy is going to be as good as Sam Darnold and these other guys were in the system. Again,
you might want to whisper that one. People are going to come for you. McCarthy's the god.
He'll be pretty good, I'm sure. Again, I trust KOC and everything. That's why Jefferson is my wide receiver 3. But again, with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, I'm happy you brought up, Jake, again, the fact that is Dak going to bounce back, because he just had, by QBR, passer rating, a lot of these different numbers, the worst season of his career in 8 games before he was even injured in the first place. That Cowboys offensive line really remains pretty down bad. I know they used a first-round pick to replace Zach Martin, but I don't know. Brian Schottenheimer was already in that building, and now you're just telling me George Pickens is going to single-handedly, I guess, change his passing game. Could it happen? Sure. But again, it's enough of a nitpick to Jake's point where, man, guys, I have my home league draft coming up this weekend. I actually had to pick last night between what draft spot I wanted. Unfortunately, my buddy had the 101. I would have taken that and taken Jamar Chase if I could have. But again, enough concern with these wide receivers where I ended up taking pick 8 in a lame-ass 8-man league. I know that's a story for another day. But I almost think that you can make an argument where the Puka, the Nico Collins, even some of the running backs down the board a little bit too. I want to take my chances there and give me 2 shots at the top 10 instead of picking, pick number 2, pick number 3, and going out on a limb for someone like Jettas or CeeDee.
Well, make it a live change. You convinced me, Ian. I'm putting Chase by himself. There you go.
Is it an 8-man NFC only league?
Not quite. Just a sad 8-man league. But we do have 2 quarterbacks, 3 flexes, so we're trying.
How many years has that league been going on now?
Since my freshman in college, so about 15 or so. I lost the very first one, and I had to wear a Jets Tim Tebow jersey every Tuesday for a semester. So that was humbling. Haven't lost since. So I feel like, first or last mindset in a lot of fantasy leagues, but when you got a punishment, guys, just 7th is fine with me.
Well, if you had to wear the Tebow jersey, you got God on your side, and then you couldn't lose again.
You know the worst part about this, I went to this nerdy school in Chicago, and like not a single classmate for an entire quarter was like, "Hey man, I've noticed you were wearing that same jersey every single Tuesday for the last 10 weeks." No one said a freaking word, so I didn't even get to explain myself. So man, sad times.
You guys are a bit off on Collins. Ian, you got him at 4. Jake, you got him at 9. But it sounds like with the way that you guys have been talking, it's a preference point, but still a part of the same tier.
Yeah, and well, again, mine breaks out into another tier. But if you wanted to argue him there, I just think we have to incorporate some of the risk that C.J. Stroud last year, even in a bounce back, isn't what he was as a rookie. That offensive line, I know they've tried to make additions similar to what Ian just talked about with the Cowboys. We're assuming it's going to be better. That could still be a bottom 5 offensive line. The one positive I'll say, and this is why I like the Jaden Higgins thing, and this, just to bring this in as a sidebar, is that while under pressure, C.J. Stroud was actually a very capable and very productive passer when throwing to Nico Collins. That's the one area that helps, which is why I think he needs somebody more like a Jaden Higgins versus the Stephon Diggs corpse that we had last year, or Tank Dell just running downfield, because you don't have time to get to Tank Dell downfield. So I look at it, I say, I think there is bounce back potential, but I mean, this is Nico Collins also coming off the injury and looking semi himself for most of the season, but at times it was like, hey, I want that Nico Collins back from 2 years ago. So I think there's plenty of upside. If Nico Collins finished 5th, wouldn't be shocked. But I just say there's a little bit more risk with him than Brian Thomas or Drake London or something like that, and it's minute.
All right.
Yeah, I guess the only reason why I'm preferring Nico is just the lack of that kind of number 2 target getter with Tank Dell out, with Stephon Diggs gone. Now, maybe Higgins surprises. You got Noel, you got Christian Kirk and everything. But I just think that, man, when you do look at Puka, obviously has Devontae Adams in town. BTJ has Travis Hunter. London even has Mooney, not completely sold on Penix. I get it. CJ Stroud, I am betting a little bit on him looking more like the 2023 version of himself. But I still think we've seen enough to believe that he can be a big-time passer. So Nico actually is the only wide receiver that's averaged north of 3 yards per route run over the past 2 seasons combined. I really think he, again, has that talent, very much on the same tier with all these guys. And again, just a tiebreaker for me here, lack of that, extra target runner in the offense.
11 to 20 in terms of ADP looks like Ladd McConkey at number 11, Higgins at number 12, JSN at 13, Tyreek 14, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Rashee Rice, whose number is going to plummet now with the suspension looming, Terry McLaurin, Marv Harrison Jr., and Mike Evans at number 20. The biggest discrepancy in you guys right now is, Ian, you like Marvin Harrison a lot more, or not a lot more, but almost like a tier's worth of rankings-ish. Top of the tier versus bottom of the tier on Marvin Harrison Jr. And Jake, you love JSN.
I love what Kubiak is going to do with this offense potentially. And of course, if you didn't draft Elijah Arroyo in the 4th round of your draft today, I don't know what you're doing, because that apparently he's the 3rd best tight end in football now. But it really comes down to, if you look at it, and I think it was the Yankee concept or something like that. But just watch Kubiak, and I know he didn't have a lot to work with last year, but if you watch what he does, it's a lot of movement, and a lot of that movement involves sometimes even 2 tight ends. And I think that's why there's warranted excitement for Arroyo. If you're going to take a gamble on the rookies, include him as well. But the JSN thing here is that it goes back to the Cooper Kupp discussion. And you watch the movement, whether it's Chris Olave for a time or Rashid Shaheed, and what really benefits somebody is the way that he runs the route. You can go look up the plays and everything like that. I know Ian's probably tweeted him, because he does a lot better job of tweeting out plays and stuff like that than I do. But if you watch the movement, and the way that it opens things up is you basically get 2 wide receivers a lot of time in his system. And one is going deep and one is going intermediate. It's not a short pass for the other wide receiver, that being likely Kupp in the situation, but it just opens up that wide receiver deep, which is what those plays were with Shaheed and sometimes even Olave. And I just think that if you're going to be moving Smith and Jigba to outside even more, and he still can play the slot, and some of those routes come out of the slot, I just think you're going to see the beneficiary being JSN overall, after we already saw him pretty much break out last year, where now he's in the conversation with Nico Collins and Ladd McConkey. I flipped him and Tyreek Hill with the update, by the way. But in that group of 130 targets, better ADOT this year, better concepts being run in this offense. Obviously, all comes back to Sam Darnold, but Sam Darnold did a hell of a lot to support, as Ian mentioned, not only Justin Jefferson, but Jordan Addison is a top 5 wide receiver. I just think Smith and Jigba is going to benefit. As much as I sat here and argued with guys that, hey, buy back into Kupp for his value, that he could bounce back, I don't think there's any way in the world that Smith and Jigba is just not going to have honestly terrific season. I have a 10th. I don't know how you can get much better than that.
Sam Darnold, good for fantasy wide receivers because although we didn't see it as much last year, he's not afraid to force the ball in there, have a turnover, get you behind, and have to keep throwing the entire game. It's the old Jameis effect where, yeah, he's like, all right, and he'll score fantasy points, but he's always throwing, always going to the same guys. Ian, with Kubiak, do you think that he's a bit overrated because of those first 2 weeks the Saints had, and it just feels like that's what people remember about the Saints last year?
And the best part about it, man, the Cowboys and Panthers, those two games, literally finished 31st and 32nd in scoring defense. I even took the numbers removing the first 2 weeks to see how they did the rest of the year and still bottom 3 scoring defenses. So, yeah, I do think it's a little bit overrated, man. Again, it was a situation where, sure, he had Derek Carr slinging it deep to Olave and Shaheed, but to Carr's credit, we did actually have a few years with those John Gruden Raiders. Like, when you gave that dude a clean pocket, he could sling it. If, he could have played in the 7-on-7 era of football, I'm sure, he could have had a much even better career. But looking at again that why could they not do anything the rest of the year? Injuries. Okay, every team is banged up, and that team was borderline unwatchable for 2 months of the year, and we just kept going back to this 2-week sample size. So great last name, and I'm sure that's why a lot of people are into it in the first place and everything. But yeah, man, I don't think the Seahawks offensive line holds a candle to what we're going to see in some of these other rooms. And honestly, I do think that could be the biggest issue here, because as we did see when the clock struck midnight on Darnold's Cinderella story last year, a lot of those problems were pressure, particularly up the middle. So I do think that, again, when he had Olave and Shaheed, those were the two receivers who can attack more downfield and I think win and open things up and everything for the run game. I don't see that in Seattle. Like right now, their field stretchers, unironically, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, all right? And they're talking about Elijah Arroyo having X receiver capabilities, and sure, he can run down the seam and everything like that, but you're still asking a lot to clear out those underneath areas. So it was nice to see JSN get, that higher average target depth, as Jake mentioned last year. Like as a rookie, Shane Waldron, way too many gadgety, just design plays here and there. So, hey, JSN didn't catch triple-digit passes by not being a good football player, but I think the skill set overlaps a bit with Cooper Kupp, and I'm just worried that, again, we're going to see a downgrade from Geno to Darnold, particularly given the concerns on the offensive line.
Jake, how long do you think Darnold remains the starter?
I'd say unless he gets hurt. You don't turn it like Milroe needs time, and I think
Drew Lock?
Oh, God. Yeah. Ruin the Giants pick again 2 years in a row. They've had a quarterback step in and ruin their pick for them. The truth is those things aren't mutually exclusive to say that Kubiak overrated, but also that he can help this offense. So I won't disagree in the fact that he can get inflated, him being in his own right, similar to these other conversations we're talking about other coaches. And I do acknowledge the risk of Sam Darnold completely, seeing ghosts and get all the pressure in the world. We saw at the end of last year with the Vikings. So it's that if that showed up this year and all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, Sam Darnold, he's everything that we always thought he was. We can't explain last year being the outlier. Then Smith and Jigba and this entire damn team is going to be a bust. Like everything goes down with Darnold on this. So that's why I think he's under quarterback no matter what. You give him that contract, and I know it's not a 5-year guaranteed deal or anything like that, but unless he gets hurt, they're not going to turn to Drew Lock. They're not going to turn to Milroe yet. I just think that Smith and Jigba can maybe I'm giving him more credit than Ian is, and I'm not saying like I'm right and he's wrong or anything like that. I just think he can do more, and he can do more downfield similar to, and I'm not calling him Justin Jefferson. I'm just saying what Darnold just did with Jefferson, I think Jefferson's concerns coming out of college were, can he play outside? And I think that's what we already saw answered in the fact that Smith and Jigba can do that last year. And I think these concepts that I was bringing up by Kubiak frees him more to do that this year. And go back real quick. The injuries don't matter. They were playing with a flag football team last year with Spencer Rattler under center and a bunch of dudes that people had to look up their depth charts to understand who was on the field for the Saints.
But look what Matt LaFleur did with Malik Willis and like how he just changed the entire offense. Like that's what I want to see out of a play caller. Like if you go down swinging, don't just give me the sad excuse for an offense.
You're not wrong. That's why I said they're not mutually exclusive. You can say he gets too much credit, but that he can also still improve the offense.
Yeah.
Of the names on the screen right now, these ADP 11 to 20 guys at wide receiver, Jake, just first name that comes into your head. I told you that one of these guys is going to be the number one receiver at the end of the year. Which one is it?
Ooh. Nobody. I would say it's either, honestly, Smith and Jigba or Higgins with an injury.
Okay. Ian?
I got McConkey ranked the highest, but if I had to say who's going to have the highest return, I think we could see. Shout out, who wasn't on Twitter? I guess I'll just Jacob Rickrow, but he was talking about the potential, I think, for Puka and Devontae Adams to be like the modern version of like Randy Moss and Chris Carter, and what they were doing. If there's going to be an offense that can enable 2 top 10 wide receivers, it would be this Rams one. Ever since Stafford and McVay joined forces, we've seen Rams wide receivers rank first in total yards and second in receptions. Puka is going to get his, but they're going to really condense that target tree. Tutu Atwell is just more of a field stretcher, clear out threat. And man, I did not see Devontae Adams looking washed at all last season. He was actually the overall PPR wide receiver 3 during the final 6 or 7 weeks down the stretch. So Adams, Puka, and Stafford, man, I think we're putting up big time numbers this year.
If you don't think that Fields is a bust, I think that the two most compelling cases for me that is, if you looked up and they said, "Oh my God, this guy finished number 1 overall at receiver," it'd be McConkey or Garrett Wilson. And I just don't think Garrett Wilson has. I don't think that Garrett Wilson has the same stability as most of these guys. But if you're just like, "Oh, this guy is so fucking talented," that all of a sudden it just went right for him.
Yeah.
That being Fields or Wilson?
For Wilson ups his game, and then all of a sudden Fields is playing like that Thursday night game when he threw like 8 touchdowns to DJ Moore, but he does it all season. It's like, oh my God, what has happened here?
I think that's the issue here, and that's what I come back to. Is I've gotten some pushback for Garrett Wilson, despite like being somebody who loves the talent. Is I have him for over 130 targets, and I still can't get him inside the top 15, and it's mostly because it's Justin Fields. I don't know that the touchdown equity is going to be there, and I don't know the reception rate is going to be there, mostly because of Fields. Now, that's why I asked you to clarify the question of who's playing great, because if Justin Fields all of a sudden takes a step forward and he's just a mid-level passer completing 58-60% for the entire season. I know his completion percentage has been over that, but I mean, also, I want to specify more of those downfield throws and in the red zone, in the end zone, where all of a sudden, hey, Garrett Wilson gets his number up to 65% reception, and he gets his touchdown mark up to 10, 11, or 12. Sure. It's just, it feels like a lot of ifs for Justin Fields to get Garrett Wilson inside the top 10, let alone number 1 overall. Like, I feel like that has to be 160 to 70 targets.
Speaking of, we had these play callers back and forth going. It is funny to me that the Jets and Tanner Engstrand just get zero like potential credit for what could happen here. Okay, because in Detroit, Ben Johnson was there. They learned from Ben Johnson. Detroit's going to be fine. Ben Johnson went to Chicago. Oh, now Chicago is going to be great. Maybe Ben Johnson's right-hand man who spent the last 5 years in Detroit and now is going to the Jets also knows a thing or two. So, again, Garrett, I'm with you, Pat. I do think that, again, we were talking about this on another show where we were telling Jake, come on, 130 targets, give me 160 up there. But it is a situation, Bill Parcells used to say, you are what your record says you are. As much as I want to buy into Garrett Wilson, like he keeps putting up wide receiver 3 numbers in fantasy land. Man, really tough for me to, again, be so sure that he's going to, get too much higher.
21 to 30 starts with DJ Moore, ADP number 21. Metcalf, Xavier Worthy, who we've already spoken about. You guys have a 6-point difference between them. Ian has Worthy at 17, Jake at 23. Cortland Sutton, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, J-Mo, Jamison Williams, that big giant head, Ted McMillan. Then you got George Pickens and Travis Hunter. I think Travis Hunter's interesting. You guys are both below his ADP. Jake, you got him at 33. Ian, defend yourself. 2 points below, 32 ranking on Travis Hunter. I want to see there's one guy. Now, Ian, you have Jerry Jeudy behind him. That's not right. Jake, you have Jerry Jeudy ahead of Travis Hunter. That's the right call.
Well, but Ian has to defend himself then. So go.
We'll see, man. Jeudy, look, he finally put it together. I get it. That Broncos Thursday night game was, or maybe it was Monday night. It was a fever dream. That was an awesome time and everything. But lest we forget all the things that had to really go right for Jeudy to get that to happen. And it wasn't just the QB switch with Jameis, man. We also actually saw Cedric Tillman outperforming Jeudy for 4 weeks until he got a season-ending concussion. They've also brought in Deontay Johnson. At least for now, he hasn't been kicked off the team yet. Again, even David Njoku was someone who was out down the stretch. Quarterback, concerns abound. I'd love to see Joe Flacco just get the job, but trying to read between the lines with these reports, it does seem like Kenny Pickett and these rookies are unfortunately going to be starting games as well. So with Hunter, I mean, Jake and I are both, to be fair, kind of lower than what I've seen a lot of people out there. I mean, Hunter was someone where in some of these earlier drafts throughout the summer was going closer to wide receiver 24 than wide receiver 30 right now. So again, I do respect the talent, but when we have an offense with Trevor Lawrence who, pull his numbers up next to Daniel Jones, and I guarantee you, Jaguars fans, you will be getting angry. agree. I don't know if Liam Cohen can fix the whole thing overnight. Maybe just maybe, guys, that Buccaneers offense was really good because Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Bucky Irving were really good. So, with Hunter, again, we're just taking a lot of leaps. And, I hope he plays a full-time freaking role on offense. And I hope he's not going to be, injured for trying to be the first ever two-way player. So as much as we can say, everyone's saying Hunter isn't going to be getting tired and this and that, and I've seen that out there. Again, you're just betting on the guy also immediately being a complete stud at the NFL level, which, again, wide receiver 3 seems like appropriate risk for me.
My concern is Travis Hunter's full-time usage on offense, whether or not he plays on defense. And that's coming from somebody who said that if we knew Travis Hunter was only being drafted as a wide receiver, you can make the argument that he's the best in the class ahead of McMillan. That's at least 1A to 1B. But I say why we have concern because he's still a rookie going to a team. Let's start with Brian Thomas. That's done. We already know Brian Thomas is a top 10 talent in the NFL. So poof, that's out the window. He's not going to be the number one option. And I'm not saying this should be the case. I like Hunter. I will take Hunter 10 times out of 10. But they keep talking up Diami Brown as this deep threat and playing him outside. And should that be the case? Absolutely not. But if they're going to do that, and then all of a sudden Hunter snap share is 70% just because he's only out there in 3 wide and they shift him around with Diami Brown. Just saying all these things, which partly probably folds into what Ian's saying is that's an easy way to still get him some defensive snaps and not wear him down. There's just a lot of risk there. If you want to take him earlier because of the upside is truthfully top 25. He can go out there and they can be Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on this team, assuming, as he said, that Cohen gets Trevor Lawrence right, and all of a sudden we're talking about both of them. But I just think there's a lot of risk here. So if you want to take him a few spots earlier, this is also a very giant tier for me where you can see some of these other names. I don't have a problem with it. I just think there's more risk than there is with McMillan, even though I think the ceiling is higher with Hunter than McMillan.
Ian, guys I would take over Travis Hunter right now, I would take them later because they're going later, but I would just still objectively take them ahead of Travis Hunter. I would take Jerry Jeudy ahead of him. I would take Roma Dunze, Team Italy, right ahead of him. I would also take Jacoby Myers ahead of him. I think you guys are way too low on Jacoby Myers.
Look, it's one of these, and I'm with you, Pat. Jacoby's ripped off back-to-back top 24 seasons. There is an element to this, though, where I am trying to rank these guys somewhat around their ADP. You don't want to tell someone to draft a dude in round 4 that you can't get in round 6.
Ian,
so.
this is the wrong place to be saying things like that. Jake and I have been doing this for over a decade. I probably have the most off-the-wall rankings. I don't care where you take them. Just take these guys. They're good.
That's fair enough. But, man, I will say with Roma Dunze, this dude averaged 0.1 more PPR points per game than freaking Jalen Coker last year, all right? And as much as we want to always point the finger at Shane Waldron and stuff, and you can bring up the uncatchable air yards, I don't know, guys. I was watching Roma Dunze play all last year, too, and it wasn't like it was just constant, wide open again, and Caleb Williams missed him and this and that. So much target competition with DJ Moore. They brought in Luther Burden. He's a top 10 pick on Colston Loveland, and it's not like Ben Johnson was exactly running the most pass-happy offenses in Detroit to begin with. So really, really disappointing season from Dunze, and it's funny to me that he and Marvin Harrison Jr. wound up getting a pretty similar number of total targets. Marv actually did way more, but I feel like Dunze almost gets more of a pass for the season. So I think sleeper NFL, I put out a tweet yesterday or something saying like Roma Dunze is a blank top receiver a top blank receiver in the NFL. 50, 60, very, very disappointing year. Man, the track record of guys who, again, just weren't able to put on in year one like Roma Dunze, not exactly great moving forward.
Jake, they're going to hype up Roma Dunze this year because the Olympics are in Italy. This is what they need to do to get the ratings on NBC.
That's exactly what it is. All right, his dad's going to help him get him more time on the field. Look, part of Dunze's problem last year was his own right. It was his own making. He was off on some of his positioning that he needed to be. Some of them were balls that he was catching in college that he didn't catch as a rookie. So I don't think it's 100%. He's definitively the number 2 best option, but I would make a bet on it. Like if I was betting, I think he should take that over a rookie in Luther Burden, and I'm a Luther Burden fan. My biggest issue with this team is just that I'm worried that it's wide receiver by committee. I worry because they are all interchangeable. Yes, you could say you could go down the rankings and rank them 1, 2, 3 of who's best in the slot, 1, 2, 3 who's best outside. But those are such slim margins. They can all 3 play outside. They can all 3 play the slot. All 3 of them are very dynamic, inside, outside, can do a lot of things, move around the line, wide receivers, where What if none of them end up getting even 115 targets? And that's my concern here with the Bears, is that Caleb Williams can be a breakout, and we can still be frustrated with the wide receivers production, not even going as far as what Ian just said, incorporating passes to the backfield and Colston Loveland at the tight end. You take a tight end that early, and I'm not buying into Colston Loveland. I mean, you might as well, because it's tight end. Who the hell cares after you get past the top 5 or 6? Just take whoever tight end you like, because there's a chance he could be top 5. But like, you just don't take a tight end there and not try to feature him at least a little bit, especially if this is your first draft pick you're making. So I just think there's a lot of risk that this is a very inconsistent week-to-week situation where even if you're getting wide receiver 2 numbers from Odunze, it's going to be like 6 great games and a lot of frustrations.
Ian, why are you so high on Tet McMillan, whereas Jake is so low?
I just think that target ceiling could be astronomical, man. Like, if we do see 150 out of T-Mac, which I get, you can't responsibly go out there and necessarily project him for, but I think it's on the table for the guy. Again, seeing him get picked 8th and just seeing some of the interest too. The Rams wanted to trade up for this dude. And just, again, when we do see wide receivers picked that early, and with a quarterback in Bryce Young, who finally started to show us a little bit in the second half, he is someone that I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, just ahead of more clear-cut wide receiver 2s. All right, so when we are looking at T-Mac, I got him ahead of DJ Moore, someone who, has proven more at the NFL level, but again, is in that crowded offense. And we got Devonta Smith, the second banana in Philly, Zay Flowers in a Ravens offense that has multiple tight ends, other guys, George Pickens, Jalen Waddle, et cetera, et cetera. So, hey, Travis Hunter versus T-Mac, that's fine. And I do know that over at Fantasy Life, Dwayne McFarland's rookie wide receiver supermodel actually agrees with Jake. Like, they are neck and neck as prospects, but they're neck and neck as being some of the better prospects that we've seen. So with T-Mac, again, I think he can go up and win, and also very underrated after the catch. He forced 29 missed tackles his last season at Arizona. Malik Neighbors had 30 during his final season at LSU for comparison. So I'm just really buying into, again, talent meeting opportunity, and I'll take that over some of these guys who aren't even the best wide receiver on their own teams.
Jake, I have Tet McMillan projected for 161 half-point PPR fantasy points this year.
I thought you were going to say targets.
No,
No, that's what I thought he was going
that number is reserved for Garrett Wilson. Don't worry about that. The player who is at 160 fantasy points overall, one spot behind him in my projections. Do you know who that player is?
Darius Slayton.
Jacoby.
Jacoby Myers.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I moved up Jacoby Myers with the update today, so I'm still not as high as you have him. I think mostly because this just comes to a draft kind of what I'm going for is, okay, cool. Jacoby Myers, I want a half-point PPR. I want 10, 11 points per game. I know I'm going to get it. Cool. I just see a lot of
if you have a bonus for first touchdowns in your league, dude scores the first touchdown every third week.
Finally, after years of never getting in the end zone. Remember that?
But I feel like that's being held against him, the years of never scoring a touchdown on the Patriots. Since he's been on the Raiders, he's actually been pretty productive at finding the end zone.
Somewhat. You're not wrong there, but I would say for anybody doing that and holding it against them, that's not where I'm coming from. I'm just coming from is like no ceiling, in my opinion. Is like cool if you want the production. I'm not going to argue against it. If you want to take him where you have him, he's probably going to finish more where you have him than I do. It's just in that range, I'm taking darts on guys who can get to the top 20. And that could come down to roster construction. Maybe things go another direction. I drafted a tight end early. I went running back heavy, whatever it might be. And I actually need somebody like Jacoby Myers. I can see myself taking him. It just comes down to I'm shooting for top 20 in this range because they are most likely on my bench now. And I just don't want a guy that I just know is going to be cool. Wide receiver 3, back end wide receiver 3. It just doesn't do a lot for me in that range. To go back to your McMillan, you're actually not far from me. I have him for 168.9 points on 123 targets. My concern, and this is somebody who's getting hate for where I have Bryce Young in my rankings as being too aggressive, is just I don't think Bryce Young is also going to be very high on two things, overall passing, but also yards per completion, ADOT, whatever it might be.
I mean, that makes a ton of sense to me. I'm closer to your ranking on McMillan than where Ian's at. I think I have him at number 29 is where he ends up coming in. I'm just looking at projections. I mean, my projections and my rankings aren't going to be 1v1 because
right.
I don't want to have to go back and fiddle to move guys up. I'll just put them on a list and move them up. Just guys that I prefer to end up drafting. But there was something that Jake said there, Ian, that I thought was somewhat interesting, that there are pairings that you can get. So like a nice wine pairing. I think that Jacoby Myers works excellently alongside Rashee Rice.
Yeah, because you get but I will also say, like, I feel like Jacoby's the only one we almost use that argument for. What's the problem with drafting a guy as a wide receiver 4 when he's returned top 25 numbers? And he was doing that with Devontae Adams in fold, who's now gone. Who is the number 2 wide receiver in Vegas right now? I know we have Brock Bowers there, but Trey Tucker, Jack Bash, Dante Thornton, like very, very, we have like a New York Jets-esque wide receiver room going on with that Raiders team as well. Big time quarterback upgrade with Geno Smith in town. I'm drafting Jacoby quite a bit more, but yeah, man, this is either way though, this kind of range. I think Khalil Shakur is honestly maybe a guy I put more so in that, doesn't have the top 10 ceiling, at his price point. But this is the last range of wide receivers that honestly I can start to feel even remotely good about the upside. You got Cooper Kupp there, Brandon Aiyuk. That's kind of where I draw the line. I like the Colts guys, the Packers guys, but I will say after the whole Darius Slayton debacle and stuff, Jake is right in terms of you don't necessarily want to be putting those sort of guys on your bench in the first place. Once I get past that wide receiver 50, wide receiver 1 point, man, if you want to draft 6 or 7 straight handcuff running backs, I'm not going to call you crazy because, again, after the top 50, like where do you draw a line, Jake? I have Rashid Shaheed, wide receiver 53, Jaden Higgins, 56. It's right around there where I'm almost just like done at the position after that.
Probably the same range because I have like Ibuka, Burden, Coleman. They're all like in the early 50s, like in that range. I'm surprised you didn't bring out your tweet from earlier today. I know it was tongue in cheek, but the Adam Thielen production on his per game basis for the Carolina argument.
It's crazy. He's been putting up freaking numbers. You mentioned Garrett Wilson. Guys, here are I'll pull it up right now, the players that Adam Thielen has outscored PPR points per game over the past 2 seasons. Garrett Wilson, Jordan Addison, Brandon Aiyuk, DK Metcalf, Deebo, Sutton, Olave, Ridley, Zay Flowers, Jaden Reed, Pickens, Waddle, JSN himself. Adam Thielen, man, that old dog will not go down.
I'll just run through these. So ADP 30 to 50. Waddle, Ridley, Jerry Jeudy, too low. Chris Godwin, Ramadunze, Olave, Addison, Juwan Jennings, Deebo, and Jacoby Myers, way too low at number 40. Jake has him ranked at 49. Ian smartly has him ranked above ADP at 39, still way too low. Ricky Bullets is number 41. Shakir is 42. Diggs, Jaden Reed, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Golden, Josh Downs, Darnell Mooney Tunes. You got Michael Pittman at 49 and Ibuka at number 50. So I'm kind of with you guys with what you were saying. Like you get to a point where you want to stop drafting wide receivers. I kind of go the other way that I'm going to have my 3, depending on the size of the league is dependent. The number of wide receivers you start is dependent on this. Let's say I do go get Rashee Rice, which we let off the show with. Jacoby Myers works in perfectly for me. That Myers is a stability point for me that could be inside the top 35 at wide receiver. That's great. And then I have this guy coming in who could be inside the top 25, top 15 as my wide receiver 3 if need be. Then on bye weeks, if I need to fill in a flex, Myers can work that way. And I'm with Ian that the upgrade to Geno Smith, I think, is pretty underrated for Jacoby Myers, a more accurate, great indoors quarterback that they haven't seen the likes of this in a while. It's not Aiden O'Connell chucking him the ball anymore. So I feel like that's a big boost to his potential overall production. But for me, I don't want anyone in this range, this 40 to 50 range. Like Jaden Reed, yeah, maybe he's great. I'm never going to find out. Cooper Kupp, we know he's fucking washed. Don't worry about him. Downs, Mooney, yeah, Mooney, maybe. Shakir, no thanks. Diggs, no thanks. I would be going down to just the 2 or 3 guys that I like that I think could make a big impact. I think Shaheed could make a big impact. I talked about last time Cedric Tillman, I think could make a big impact. And I would just spend my last 2 round picks on those guys rather than getting the Rashad Batemans and Marvin Mims and Keon Coleman's of the world. Just like throw those guys to the side. They're not worth anything.
And that's what my point was, and I couldn't agree more. Whether you differ on some of these players or whether you're saying I like this one versus that one or whatever, the point remains here is we're all going to have different wide receiver tastes in this range, is that especially in a year like this with a lot of committee backfields to start and these rookies in this class and everything, is to take some of those, like lean into that hero RB, because there's probably going to be injuries. This is probably going to be a hell of a lot bigger of a shakeup than we saw last year. It was actually one of the healthiest, best productive seasons we've seen from running backs in a long time, is we're going to probably regress back towards the norm where some of these things happen, and then find the ones you want. If your argument is, and I don't agree with this, but it's like, hey, look, Stephon Diggs sounds like he's going to be healthy for week 1. This is what Drake May needs. He's going to be top 20. Like, I don't agree with you at all. But if that's your argument, put him on your bench. Those are the ones. If you think Matthew Golden could be the breakout and could be a healthy Christian Watson, put him on your bench. Find the 2 or 3 names in this range that you create, as you say, Pat, all the time. Create your narrative for. What is the scenario, how this player gets inside the top 25? And if you believe it, those are the ones you take and just ignore all the rest.
Ian?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think some of these guys are being priced down the way they are. It's similar to kind of the Cowboys and Jaguars backfield. When we have the uncertainty about the pecking order, that's why they're kind of as cheap as they are. Indy and Green Bay are kind of these two examples where I do like the associated options, but unlike, in Indianapolis, we actually like the offense and the quarterback in Green Bay. We've seen Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur do some great things. So when I see Reed and Matthew Golden there, I think it's actually a great opportunity to potentially buy these guys closer to their floor than their ceiling. I mean, Jaden Reed was like the ultimate, kind of sell high after the first half of last season guy, but it's still a young ascending guy. Also gets, 10 or 15 rush attempts on the season. Actually became the first wide receiver to lead the position in rushing without the last name Samuel since I think 2018 or something like that. So Matthew Golden, just in terms of being in an offense we like and being a first round pick, knowing nothing else about the guy, that would tell you that's a reasonable price tag as a wide receiver for. So again, at this point in time, I want to be done at wide receiver. So I'm drafting these guys as my probably fifth, maybe even my sixth guy at this point, and then trying to be done at the position. So from that standpoint, no, I'm not expecting them to immediately be dudes I'm slotting in. But out of this group, I would say, Jaden Reed's probably been the one I put the most tokens on.
All right, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. You've heard Jake constantly refer to his updated rankings. Jake, where can everyone find those?
Over at The Athletic, the draft kit's coming out, and as you always say, if you go to 4 for 4, mess with those projections, you can do the same with mine. You can take this spreadsheet and say, this is why you're stupid, Jake, and then give your boy, Garrett Wilson, give him a 40% target share. You can legitimately see what happens.
Ian, how about over at Fantasy Life? Is that where everyone can find your updated rankings?
Sure can. Also got the Fantasy Life show going Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, Friday at noon. And also, shout out 4 for 4, one of the first companies to actually give me a chance, OGs of the fantasy game. Appreciate everything they do.
Yeah, now they're bringing in a partnership with old Pat Mayo. So 4for4.com/Mayo will get you 25% off all NFL packages at 4for4.com right now, be it daily fantasy, betting, pick'em, standard fantasy. There's different packages for the level that you want to get in at, and I highly suggest that you go do that right now, okay? I'll wait. Thanks. Appreciate the money. I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!